When 42-year-old corporate attorney Richard Blackstone strutted into Frank Caprio's courtroom wearing a $5,000 suit and acting like he owned the place, everyone expected another routine dismissal, but what this overconfident lawyer was about to face would expose his darkest secret and end his career in the most humiliating way imaginable. Judge Frank Caprio looked up from his morning docket as one of the most expensive-looking defendants he'd ever seen entered his courtroom. Richard Blackstone, 42, wore a perfectly tailored charcoal suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary, gold cufflinks that caught the light, and carried himself with the swagger of someone who believed money could solve any problem. "Mr. Blackstone," Frank began, glancing at the file, "you're here for multiple parking violations in handicapped spaces. How do you plead?" Richard barely looked up from checking his platinum Rolex. "Your Honor, this is obviously a misunderstanding. I'm a partner at Blackstone, Morrison & Associates. We handle the city's largest corporate accounts. I'm sure we can work something out." Frank Caprio felt his jaw tighten. In 30 years on the bench, few things irritated him more than defendants who thought their status put them above the law. "Mr. Blackstone, I asked how you plead to the charges, not about your resume." Richard flashed a condescending smile. "Guilty, I suppose. But Judge, with all due respect, these are minor infractions. I'm here on a case worth $12 million to the city. Surely we can handle this with a small fine and move on." But what Frank said next wiped the smirk right off his face. "Mr. Blackstone, I see here you've received 17 parking tickets in handicapped spaces over the past 6 months. 17. Can you explain this pattern?" Richard waved dismissively. "Judge, I'm constantly rushing between court appearances, client meetings, depositions. Sometimes you have to park where there's space available." "Space available?" Frank's voice carried a dangerous edge. "Mr. Blackstone, handicapped spaces aren't available space for busy lawyers. They're designated for people with disabilities." "Of course, Your Honor. But these were just quick stops. In and out. No harm done." Frank Caprio stood up slowly, a sign that always commanded attention in his courtroom.
"No harm done?"
"Mr. Blackstone, do you have any idea what it's like for someone in a wheelchair to circle a parking lot looking for a space while able-bodied people like you take the few spots designated for them?" Richard shifted uncomfortably. "Judge, I understand your concern, but let's be realistic here. I contribute significantly to this city's economy." This is where Frank Caprio's legendary temper began to show. "Mr. Blackstone, are you suggesting that your economic contribution gives you the right to violate laws designed to protect disabled citizens?" "I'm suggesting that perhaps we could view this in context. I'm not some common criminal. I'm a respected member of the legal community." Frank's eyes flashed dangerously. "Mr. Blackstone, respect isn't determined by the price of your suit or the size of your bank account. It's earned through actions. And your actions show a complete disregard for some of our community's most vulnerable members." Richard made the mistake of smirking again. "Your Honor, I think you're being a bit dramatic. We're talking about parking spaces."
Dramatic?
Frank's voice rose. "Mr. Blackstone, my brother Tony has been in a wheelchair for 15 years. I've watched him struggle to find parking while people like you take the spots he desperately needs." The courtroom fell silent. Richard's confidence began to crack. But then Frank asked the question that would destroy everything. Frank leaned forward, his voice deadly quiet. "Mr. Blackstone, I have one simple question for you, and I want you to think very carefully before you answer." Richard straightened his tie nervously. "Of course, Your Honor. On March 15th at 2:47 p.m., you parked in a handicapped space outside the Riverside Medical Center. Do you remember that specific incident?" Richard paused, clearly trying to recall. "Judge, I park in many places. I can't remember every specific instance." "Let me refresh your memory. You parked in that space for 47 minutes while you had lunch at Romano's restaurant next door. During that time, a 73-year-old man named Vincent Marcello, who lost his leg in Vietnam, circled the parking lot 6 times, looking for a handicapped space before giving up and going home without his chemotherapy appointment." The color drained from Richard's face. "Your Honor, I had no way of knowing." Frank's voice cut like a blade. "Mr. Blackstone, did you even look at the signs? Did you see the wheelchair symbol? Or were you too important to notice?" The revelation that came next shocked everyone. Frank continued, his voice growing stronger. "Mr. Blackstone, Vincent Marcello missed that chemotherapy appointment because of you. His cancer treatment was delayed by a week because he couldn't reschedule immediately." Richard's mouth opened and closed like a fish. Judge, If I had known. If you had known what? That handicapped spaces are for handicapped people. That your convenience isn't worth more than someone else's medical treatment. Frank picked up another file. April 3rd, Children's Hospital. You parked in a handicapped space for 2 hours while attending a business lunch. During that time, Maria Santos couldn't find parking to bring her disabled 6-year-old daughter for physical therapy. Richard was visibly sweating now. Your Honor, I never meant for... April 18th, Senior Center. Your illegal parking forced an elderly man with a walker to park 3 blocks away and struggle to walk to his appointment. With each revelation, Richard seemed to shrink smaller in his expensive suit. But Frank wasn't finished destroying him yet. Mr. Blackstone, I've done some research into your cases. You've made quite a career representing insurance companies denying disability claims, haven't you? Richard's voice was barely a whisper. Yes, that's part of my practice. So let me understand this correctly. You make your living arguing that disabled people don't deserve compensation, and then you steal their parking spaces in your spare time. The irony hit the courtroom like a thunderbolt. Several spectators gasped. Your Honor, my legal practice is separate from... Is it, Mr. Blackstone? Because it seems to me that your complete disregard for disabled citizens permeates every aspect of your life. Frank pulled out another document. I have here a complaint filed against you by the Rhode Island Bar Association. Want to guess what it's about? Richard's face went white. How did you... It's about your conduct in the Henderson disability case. You argued that a woman paralyzed in a car accident was faking her injuries. You hired private investigators to film her struggling to transfer from her wheelchair to her car, then used that footage to claim she wasn't really disabled. The courtroom erupted, but Frank wasn't done. Mr. Blackstone, that woman, Mrs. Catherine Henderson, is sitting in my courtroom today. Everyone turned to see a dignified woman in a wheelchair in the gallery, tears streaming down her face. Frank's voice thundered through the courtroom. Mrs. Henderson, would you like to address Mr. Blackstone? Catherine wheeled herself forward. Mr. Blackstone, you destroyed my family. You cost us our home, our savings, our hope. You painted me as a fraud when I was fighting for my life. Richard couldn't meet her eyes. Mrs. Henderson, I was just doing my job. Your job? Catherine's voice cracked with emotion. Your job was to deny a paralyzed woman the money she needed for medical care. Your job was to make me feel like a criminal for being disabled. Frank stood up again. Mr. Blackstone, I've seen enough. Your pattern of behavior shows a man who has made a career of victimizing disabled people while simultaneously stealing their parking spaces. The sentence that ended everything. Mr. Blackstone, here's my ruling. You will pay the maximum fine for each parking violation, $17,000 total, but that's just the beginning. Richard's legs nearly gave out. $17,000? You will also perform 200 hours of community service at disability advocacy organizations. You will personally apologize to every person whose parking you stole, and you will attend sensitivity training about disability rights. Frank paused for maximum impact. Furthermore, I'm forwarding this case to the Rhode Island Bar Association with a recommendation for disciplinary action based on your pattern of discriminatory behavior. Richard's voice was desperate. Your Honor, please. This will ruin my career. Mr. Blackstone, you ruined your own career the moment you decided that disabled people were beneath your consideration. But the most devastating blow was still coming. Frank looked directly at Richard. Mr. Blackstone, there's one more thing. I'm ordering a full review of all your disability cases for the past 5 years. If we find evidence of discrimination or unethical conduct, I'll recommend criminal charges. Richard collapsed into his chair. Judge, please. I have a family, a mortgage, a reputation. And Mrs. Henderson had all those things too until you took them away from her. Catherine Henderson wheeled closer to Richard. Mr. Blackstone, I want you to know something. The money you cost me, it wasn't just about wheelchairs or medical bills. My daughter couldn't go to college because of you. My husband works 3 jobs because of you. You didn't just steal my insurance claim. You stole my family's future. Richard began to cry. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. The aftermath that shocked the legal community. Within 48 hours, Richard Blackstone's law firm had suspended him pending investigation. 3 major corporate clients terminated their contracts. The Rhode Island Bar Association opened a formal inquiry into his practices. But the most powerful moment came when Catherine Henderson started the Blackstone Foundation, an organization dedicated to helping disabled people fight discriminatory insurance practices. Judge Caprio didn't just give me justice, Catherine told reporters. He gave me purpose. Every lawyer like Blackstone we expose. Every disabled person we help. Every parking space violator we catch. It all started in that courtroom. The lawyer's complete downfall was swift and merciless. 2 weeks later, Richard Blackstone was formally disbarred. The Bar Association found evidence of discriminatory practices in 23 cases involving disabled clients. He was ordered to pay $340,000 in restitution to clients he had wronged. His law firm, once valued at $12 million, collapsed within a month. His partners publicly distanced themselves from him. His mansion was seized to pay judgments against him. But perhaps most fittingly, Richard Blackstone now works as a parking attendant at Rhode Island Hospital, where he ensures that handicapped spaces are reserved for those who truly need them. The transformation that followed was remarkable. Frank Caprio's handling of the Blackstone case led to the creation of the Caprio Protocol, a system for identifying repeat parking violators and checking for patterns of discrimination. The protocol has caught over 200 chronic handicapped space violators, resulting in $2.3 million in fines and thousands of hours of community service. Most importantly, it created a new awareness about the real impact of parking violations on disabled citizens. Catherine Henderson's new mission. Catherine Henderson used her settlement money to establish the Disability Rights Legal Clinic, providing free legal services to disabled people fighting insurance companies. The clinic has recovered over $15 million for disabled clients and has put 12 discriminatory lawyers out of business. Judge Caprio taught me that justice isn't just about punishment, Catherine reflected. It's about prevention. Every lawyer we stop is dozens of disabled families we protect. The full circle moment that defined everything. 1 year after his humiliation in Frank Caprio's courtroom, Richard Blackstone requested a meeting with Catherine Henderson. "Mrs. Henderson," he said, his voice barely audible, "I know I can't undo what I did to you, but I want you to know that losing everything was the best thing that ever happened to me." Catherine studied the broken man before her. "How so?" "Because I finally understand what it means to lose your livelihood, your dignity, your future. I finally understand what I put you through." Richard pulled out a check. "It's everything I have left, $50,000. I want to donate it to your foundation." Catherine looked at the check, then at Richard. "I'll accept this donation, but not from the man who destroyed my life. I'll accept it from the man who's trying to rebuild his soul. The legacy that continues today." Today, Frank Caprio's courtroom has a new addition. A prominent sign reading "Respect for All, Equality Under Law." Below it hangs a photo of Catherine Henderson receiving the Governor's Award for Disability Advocacy. Richard Blackstone, now 45, works full-time for the Disability Rights Legal Clinic as a case researcher, using his legal knowledge to help rather than harm disabled clients. Judge Caprio didn't just punish me, Richard reflects. He saved me from becoming a monster I didn't even realize I was becoming. The Blackstone case has been studied in law schools across the country as an example of how systemic discrimination can be exposed and corrected through judicial courage. The arrogant lawyer who thought he was above the law learned that true justice has a way of finding those who prey on the vulnerable, and sometimes it comes wearing black robes and speaking with the voice of Frank Caprio. Frank Caprio keeps Richard's original parking tickets in his desk drawer, now marked, "Dismissed, Justice Served." A reminder that sometimes the most important cases aren't about traffic violations, but about the character of those who commit them. Because Frank learned something that day that reinforced his deepest belief. The law isn't just about rules and regulations. It's about protecting those who cannot protect themselves from those who abuse their power.